The inventory at Nissan just continues to grow, and while they hold a market share sturdy at 5.4%, the market share only leads the likes of Volkswagen and Mazda. No shortage of vehicles coming fresh off the truck. They don't even have the wraps removed yet. But while Nissan's made some tremendous sales and popular models like the Nissan Rogue continue to sell with heavy incentives, the fact remains is the early part of 2024, they pretty much gave up all of their profits, up to about 99%, just to get people to buy these through incentives, as well as internal motivations, marketing schemes. But the sheer dropping of many popular models and the lack of proper innovation compared to a lot of their competition just has Nissan losing market share. Things are getting drastic. Nissan headquarters now has advertised that they need to push inventory hard. There's an absolute liquidation sale going on, and they're motivating each and every dealer just to unload whatever they can. They need at least 90% of these vehicles sold in a short period of time. Nissan has actually offered up significant financial retribution, financial incentives for each dealer to push as much volume as they possibly can, with an effort to try to recoup some of the market share and hopefully keep the lights on. We know there's been huge incentives and motivations to buy vehicles like the Nissan Rogue here. They have clearly a lot of these vehicles on the lot, and they're very popular. You see a lot of these on the streets, and a lot of people argue, well, how is this company doing so poorly if you see lots of these Rogues on the road? Well, it's because they're not making a huge amount of money on the profit margin. The profit margin is not there on a lot of these vehicles, specifically for vehicles like this, the Nissan Rogue, which is more of a volume buy. But let's take a look at how much these actually cost. This is a Rogue, a 25 Rogue S all-wheel drive, and this one here goes for, oh, $34,000. So in Canadian funds, that's not a huge amount of money, and that puts it in very strict competition, even with lower entry-level vehicles like Honda's Civic and the ultimate juggernaut, the Toyota Corolla. So if you're shopping for a car, you're looking for a deal, and you just need a little bit of help, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to give you all the help you need. And Nissan has been hitting consumers heavy with lots of incentives. 30-month leases, $1,000 down, $850 a week. How can you resist that type of monthly payment? But Nissan's struggles are real. Incentives are all over the place, and yet consumers are not necessarily buying. And if they are, they're buying under such massive incentives that there's very little profit left in the game for the organization. Nissan's already elected to shut down the Wuhan plant in China because of the stiff competition from the Chinese market. The Chinese market clearly building cost-effective, low-cost electric vehicles that a lot of consumers locally there are looking for, and now Nissan has priced themselves out of the game and therefore looking at closing some of their factories. The volume game seems to be a game that Nissan's trying to play, and they're not winning right now, because even models like the Nissan Altima have been lacking innovation. It looks very garden variety. I'll be totally frank, my own personal opinion, it falls in the same space as a Toyota Camry as well as a Honda Accord, but it doesn't feel like it's as well put together. I mean, I look at some of the cheaper plastics, the fit, the finish, hubcaps on these vehicles. This plastic even feels it's that harder plastic, you know, paint on chrome. There's no sunroof here. Now, clearly this is a lower trim level, that's fine, but this Nissan Altima all-wheel drive just doesn't have what some of their competition has. In my own personal opinion, Camry is the juggernaut in their space. They're owning that market of mid-size sedans, and Nissan is struggling. The lack of innovation, the durability challenges, particularly with the CVT transmissions on a lot of these vehicles, not just in the Altima, but as well as even on some of these smaller vehicles like the Sentra, leave a lot of customers worried about the maintenance costs and ownership costs down the road outside of warranty. Nissan's trying to get back in the game with products like the Pathfinder, which used to be direct competition with the likes of Toyota 4Runner, but the 4Runner has been that vehicle that customers buy, own, and trust for years, and they always have. But unfortunately, the last couple of generations of the Pathfinder have been a little lackluster, and a lot of customers have lost the trust in that particular model. Fortunately, Nissan's gone for a restyle. They've changed it up, and they're trying to bring customers back, trying to swing people back from the Toyota brand back into Nissan with these great new redesigns. The Pathfinder, I love the looks of this vehicle here personally. And now with Toyota going with the turbo 4-cylinder in their 4Runner, it begs the question, could this in fact be better competition now? I mean, let's take a look. They've got this nice little wrap around. They're giving you nice alloys, one-touch access in. course, you get the roof rack right here, and in some cases you get the upper glass. It's a beautiful looking rig. How much are these vehicles? Well, let's take a quick look here. It's a 25 Nissan Pathfinder Platinum 4-wheel drive. Of course, this one's going to feature a whole pile of options. This is going to be a fairly loaded up version, but it should be for $60,000 for this. 61 grand out the door. This looks more like about $65,000, $66,000 with the extras and the taxes. That's not cheap, but that's priced pretty much smack dab right in the same territory as the Toyota 4Runner. The unfortunate part is Nissan lacks that halo car. Yes, the GTR they used to own, but unfortunately that's gone bye-bye, and even when they were here, the prices were extraordinarily high. Some could argue the Z car is available here, but it just doesn't seem to have the pizzazz and the flair. And anybody you ask, what would you rather buy, a Z or a Toyota Supra? 9 out of 10 people are going to give me the Toyota Supra answer. As a matter of fact, the Supra now has a final edition, which is bringing even more fanfare. Has BMW's performance backed in behind it. And of course, Toyota has always had, even though they sell a lot of low-grade, boring, lackluster, yawn-fest Fiesta type vehicles, they in fact always have something more interesting, innovative. They have the best hybrid systems, they have the best CVT with their eCVT systems, and Toyota still has a place in the market. They're a tough cookie to swallow. But Nissan's in a tough spot. Even though they've got the Area and they've had the Leaf, the fact remains is without a significant presence in the hybrid space, they seem to be struggling with sales. The other side of it is, sadly, they're also selling products that are very ho-hum. I mean, a lot of manufacturers have their volumes. They have their volumes. SUVs, small, low, small, medium-sized SUVs to match every part and every segment of the market. But unfortunately, that seems to be all they're selling these days. They really don't have a lot on the market to talk about. Now, granted, the truck is a great buy, the Nissan Frontier. The Frontier has some of the best small-sized trucks right now on the market. A little surprising they're not selling better than they are today. But they are one of the last actually to have themselves a naturally aspirated 3.8 liter V6 under the hood. In fact, so few new vehicles have a tried and true naturally aspirated engine anymore, it begs the question, why aren't they selling more of these? The truth is, it's a reputation of the rest of the brand. With engines, transmissions that you're finding in a lot of their lower grade engines, that sadly has carried through to the overall reputation. And about 6 months ago, Nissan was saying that at its current trajectory, it would be out of business in 12 to 18 months. Well, we're 6 months down the road and not a whole lot has changed other than the CEO took walk-in papers, as did the CFO. Things haven't changed all that much other than the fact that they're trying to get back on the road. They were looking for external investors to try to help stimulate, get the brand back in. They needed more cash flow. And this was the brand that was going to do it for them. They were supposed to team up with Honda. Honda brand was supposed to have the finances. We're going to team up, but the collaboration just didn't work out. The collaboration between Nissan and Honda wasn't satisfactory to the Nissan brand. While Honda wanted to make Nissan more of a subsidiary, Honda, of course, as the big brother, was willing to get involved. But of course, after the talks ended with Nissan saying, no way, we're out, Honda and Nissan ultimately dissolved that collaboration attempt. And to make matters worse, an investigation by the Office of the OAG to find Nissan with deceptive practices on a lot of the customers. 1,700 customers were overcharged and cheated of many would consider bogus fees, bogus charges. It got so bad, in fact, it impacted over 8 dealers to the tune of $3.2 million, which had to be compensated back to the consumers who were shortcomed by these alleged shady practices from some of these dealers. Clearly, reputations seem to be catching up, whether it's the CVT transmission, even though there's been some updates. A lot of people feel that they've been hard done by some of those transmissions that quite often were burning up 60, 70,000 miles. Of course, some of these other practices, selling bogus fees. And of course, just the fact that there isn't as much to talk about. You don't have a halo car, you don't have anything too exciting. I mean, you have a lot of white SUVs like this, a lot of gray SUVs, a lot of dark gray SUVs, maybe a black one. Okay, the red one looks kind of cute, but ultimately you don't have a lot of choice. Everything looks very vanilla yogurt, according to a lot of customers. The worst part is they've gone and added this variable compression motor now, which adds more problems to the potential equation. And there's already been talks of some of those engines burning turbos, burning oil, and not necessarily holding up as long as they should. But that said, this is an industry trend that a lot of manufacturers are going with these smaller turbo 3-cylinder engines. Look at Ford and some of their vehicles. Their EcoSport, which they discontinued, had a problem. Chevy, GM, they're putting in some of their vehicles, their smaller SUVs, they're putting in a turbo 3. So now you're putting turbo 3-cylinder engines, and now durability seems to be an issue. But Nissan has had durability challenges with some of their turbo 3s, some of their CVT transmissions, and so ultimately reputation, whether it's business practices or whether it's reputational, has been a big problem, has been a real stalwart for the brand. But there are still some fun cars, and many of them just never make the radar. You don't hear about them, you don't see them on the road very much. But this is a cute car right here. And what exactly are we dealing with? I'm surprised these types of vehicles aren't selling in high volumes, because this is a Sentra by Nissan. This is an SR, but where a lot of these Nissans have had significant issues with some of their continuously variable transmissions, guess what? Nissan has a vehicle like this, which would be a strong competition for the likes of the Honda Civic, which according to insiders, Nissan's coming out with a whole new redesign for the Nissan Sentra that is supposed to be like this, designed directly to compete with the likes of the Honda Civic. Of course, they use things like this black roof, so they give you this nice detailing. I'm not gonna lie, I really like the looks of that. You get the black roof, the black Highliner A-pillars, black mirror caps. Of course, you get this little rocker panel. Makes the vehicle look quite sporty. I love the looks of this design. I mean, this Sentra here, although it's a lower trim level, it's a lower level in the pecking order, it does represent something that looks quite fun, quite interesting, and even better, it has a manual transmission available, and you no longer have to worry about the continuously variable transmission. So the Nissan Sentra SR is another great example of a car that should be, in theory, selling in huge numbers. Lower cost to run, cheaper to buy into, certainly better performance, and more reliable, of course, with that transmission. And Nissan does have some competitive vehicles. We know the large SUV market is significant. Here we have an Armada SL, the redesign, and here we have a 4X, Pro 4X. You'll notice some big differences. Look at the grille. Up here you have these slotted areas, and up here it's one continuously piece. Down here, you've got some different inputs. Of course, you see all kinds of chrome, and this one here has some more aggressive look. How about down below here? You'll notice this one here has a skid plate on it with those tow hooks. You have the orange tow hooks and a bit of a skid plate. This one here is just more of a conventional layout. So they're both quite significantly different, and the prices do reflect that, because the SL is quite a bit less money than the 4X. Now you also see this one gives you the orange logo on the front. This one gives you a traditional logo. So quite significant, beautiful trucks, no matter how you look at it, but ultimately they come at a cost, because the SL over here costs a pretty significant amount of money. Yeah, you've got some nice detailing like this throughout, but this one, the SL, costs $87,000. Well, the 4X has a bigger price tag. Let's take a look. You also get some other badging details, some updates. This is a little different. Of course, you get this, all kinds of great orange detailing on there as well. But this one here comes at a $97,000 price tag. You're at $100,000 all day long. So $100,000 vehicles seem to be no shortage these days, but that's right at smack dab in the middle of every other competitive vehicle. Of course, we see that in the Cadillac Escalades. Every manufacturer seems to have that space, and Nissan is trying to be as competitive as possible, trying to give as much vehicle for the bang for buck. Now, that's a huge amount of money. I remember back in 1974 when my parents bought their first house, they paid $22,000 for it. Kind of is the eye-watering, sobering thought, isn't it? So lots of incentives, as you see right here. Of course, here they have the My Choice sales event, and right here, choose from all kinds of different options. $1,500 Nissan bonus, up to $1,500 accessory credit, or a 3-year prepaid maintenance program, which really all that gets you is an oil change once a year. Or you get a 30-month lease, $1,000 down, maybe about $100 a week. There's a bit of an incentive for an SUV right there. Now, I know somebody personally who has a late model Sentra, and they like their vehicle. It's treated them well. I personally owned a 280ZX many years ago, and I love that car. I ran the wheels off it, and it just kept going and going and going. And that inline 6-cylinder that I had way back in the early 80s, that was a true gem of an engine. Manual gearbox, a lot of fun. The car had torque for days. It was just such a great car. And that's why I am especially connected and resonate with the Nissan brand. I loved it when the brand was making fun cars. The GTR is an amazing car, but unfortunately the R35 was an extraordinarily high price tag in recent years, and it sort of pushed me as well as many other buyers out of the market. I'd love to have one of those as well. The Z car, it's fun. The 370 was a great car. The 350 didn't quite catch my eye, but quite honestly, a lot of these Z cars or Z cars are a lot of fun, and Nissan has huge potential. They've had a massive following. There's been some, in my own personal opinion, some decisions made at a higher level that haven't necessarily resulted in the same results and the same glory for the brand. But ultimately, I've come from a place where I think Nissan was a great vehicle brand at one point. But the latest word from Nissan headquarters is a massive liquidation sale. Now, they're not using that phrase. What they are saying is they're incentivizing each dealer to say, look, you need to sell 90% of your volumes. If you get 90% of your vehicles sold within the allotted time period, we're going to compensate you $350 per unit sold. That's huge incentive. So no longer is it now a profits game, it's a numbers game. A lot of these vehicles, we know back in the day they were selling for profits, high profit margin, trying to maximize their profits by less numbers, more significant markups. So they were playing the tricks, they were playing the games, but now the manufacturers going for a long bomb is offering up huge incentives for the dealers themselves to just push out the numbers, the volumes. So the idea of shopping for your car at the end of the month or at the end of the year or in May or certainly in October, November, December, that has never stood more true. There will be strategic times. There will be times at the end of the month when those vehicles have not yet been sold, and it will be highly motivated to push those vehicles out to the buyer. So what you will find now is Nissan likely going to start pushing these numbers hard with big incentives, thrown in goodies, and certainly be willing to negotiate. It's a virtual, almost liquidation sale of sorts, and Nissan is changing the game again. Once again, when we came from the last 4 or 5 years of a game of markups and numbers and amount that you can tack on, market adjustment fees, that's not the game. Nissan's not selling vehicles in a way that they can even justify market adjustment fees. That whole concept is gone out the window. They're just hoping to regain a little bit of market share, regain what looks to be a business, because the way things have been shaping up in the last year, it hasn't been good. And Nissan now is motivating the dealers who are there going to be motivating you to buy your next car. If you like to save money and you need a little bit of help buying a car, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to help you along each and every time. So with that said, there is truly a best time to buy the car. You're going to want to check out that video, very popular video, as to my best recommendations when you want to go into the dealer and negotiate on your next vehicle purchase. Check it out. It's going to help you buy and get your best deal. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you all real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.